They pulled an all-nighter last night in the Senate to vote on, they call it foreign aid. It's really foreign military aid for the most part.
There's a little bit of money for Gaza, Ukraine, humanitarian stuff, but dwarfed by, like, the billions we're giving to Israel as they massacre civilians.
Right. And this, you'll recall that a week ago, they tried to roll out this bill with a border deal that was so dead on arrival that James Lankford, senator from, where is he from? Oklahoma, had to go into the witness protection program for daring to introduce it, or even introducing the idea of introducing it. And so the bill went away, and they've come back with just the straight foreign aid bill. It's unclear what's going to happen in the House because Mike Johnson says he wants a border.
Which is amazing because he had that, right? He had the border bill in his hands, but Trump just says you can't pass anything because they'll get, even though the border bill was as far right as like the Republicans honestly could have possibly hoped for under a Democratic president if you actually were a true believer in what you say about the border. But because Trump says don't give Biden anything ahead of the election, Johnson follows suit.
And this immigration stuff is going to come up in this New York 3rd special election. But the interesting thing here, too, is that I think Mike Johnson realizes, and so don't the conservatives in the House, they just played themselves on some level. Yeah. Because the whole point, supposedly, of why Matt Gaetz wanted to get rid of McCarthy, even though we know it was really because of the ethics committee, but the whole sort of like political story that we were told was that the conservatives are going to win and they're going to stop the funding of Ukraine. And they still may, but it's going to be hard considering that they got over 2/3 of the Senate to vote for this. Here is Fox and Friends describing this whole dynamic.
Speaker Johnson said he was slamming this package for excluding the border security provisions. The Senate bill, he said, is silent on the most pressing issue facing our country, talking about the border. He says he's not going to bring it to the floor if it passes the Senate, which it did, but they could find a way to go around the Speaker.
Right. And he says the reason that the House is not going to bring it up is because it needs border security stuff, which ironically was in the Senate bill last week. But of course, that was kicked to the curb because a bunch of Republicans bailed on it because Donald Trump didn't like it. According to Punchbowl this morning, House leadership believes that they cannot bring this particular Senate bill to the House floor if Johnson wants to remain Speaker. In other words, if they bring it up in the House, he will be gone.
Speaker.
So Johnson won't bring it up, but there has been is it the motion to commit, or there is a parliamentary procedure where these things with enough sign-offs can be brought to the bill without the Speaker doing it, and there are enough Republicans apparently who want
petition.
What's that?
It's
the discharge petition.
Discharge petition. Yeah.
And there are enough Republicans who want to do so. This is not something we've heard that much about because it's pretty rare where you get enough of members of both parties to essentially go around a Speaker. But the Republican Party is fractured enough along sort of like Coke and Pepsi lines. I don't want to say this is about ideology because at the end of the day, it really isn't. It really is just about which team they're on. So that's where we stand today. In the meantime, and we'll get to this after we talk to Luke, the Joe Biden has really, really sternly said to the Israelis, you shouldn't do this.
Yeah.
Is sort of everything is sort of like weirdly proxy now. It's very strange what's going on.
Bizarre.
It's unclear if Well, we'll talk more about that there. I don't want to get into it. I think if we say one word, we're going to fall down the rabbit
Truly,
hole,
but
essentially.
it is notable though
Yeah,
that
we're doing that.
Yeah, but just real quick, notable that there were only 3 Democrats that voted against this package, and it was Bernie Sanders, it was Jeff Merkley, and Peter Welch. Even the Democrats that spoke out strongly, including Chris Van Hollen, who spoke about the war crimes. I know we'll get into it, but he voted yes because of Ukraine funding, and that is becoming a problem here, where there's a section of Democrats that are just like so pro-Ukraine that they're willing to cede giving billions of dollars to a country committing a genocide.
Without getting into it,
Yes.
there is at least a theory that the memorandum that the White House issued last week, reminding people of the Leahy rule, gives them the opportunity to stop that money from flowing if they want to afterwards. Now, whether they're going to want to or not is a different
Right.
question, but that's at least a mechanism to provide some of those senators cover. With no more said.
I'm shutting up.